Hello guys, thanks for joining me for another video. This video is actually going to be a little more boring because it's a lot more important in terms of information for people that are actually coming on this visa. So if you're not planning on coming on a working holiday visa, I would recommend skipping this video. But if you are, this is hopefully going to have a lot of great information to help you guys because it wasn't very clear as to what to do when I got into the country for everything I needed to do to get set up so I was allowed to stay and allowed to work and make money. So this is what to do when you get to Ireland on a working holiday visa. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the table right now, but I have my computer out, I have papers everywhere, and I have these two cards. And this is just to help visualize it and to show you guys what you're going to be doing when you get here. So hopefully you've gotten the visa back home, you have that giant ridiculously looking laminated piece of paper or that's coming in the mail, and you're ready to ship off to Ireland, or you're already here and you're not sure what to do. So the very first thing you need to do is, I think this is it, is register at the Garda registration office. If you look up Garda station, it'll come up with like the actual police station. But if you do Garda registration station or registration office, it'll come up with the right one that's closest to you. Now you can do this anywhere in the country and you can move around after. I didn't ask them that. That's just what I did, and they didn't say anything. So I'm telling you, like, it was no problem for me. So if you're in Dublin, you have to go online and book an appointment because it's so busy. So many people want to live in Dublin. So I wouldn't recommend staying in Dublin until you get this card, because I've heard it's just torture trying to get an appointment for this. So I was actually in Galway when I got this card, and I know Cork has an office as well. I think Limerick has an office. So if you just look it up, you can find out where an office is, and you can honestly do this like the second day you're here. Any other city except Dublin, you can just walk into the office and get it. But you have to get there really early, or there will be a line and you probably won't be able to do it. So I think the one I went to opened at 7. So I actually got there at 6:15, and I was the first one in line. Kind of the first one in line. Someone else didn't know where the line started, but they got there before me, and I tried to let them in front of me because they were there first, and they said no. So, but yeah, first or second one in line is fine. So I got there 45 minutes before, but I also didn't come in a super busy season. If I was coming in closer to the start of the school season, I would have wanted to get there 2 or 3 hours early just so I would have time to actually get in. So yeah, if you're gonna do a walk-in because you're not going in Dublin, I would definitely recommend not doing it in June, July. Not doing it at the end of August or the beginning of September. Do it before or after that range of dates, because that's when the students are going to be here, and I've heard it's just a madhouse in that office. So you register with this. How you get this card, you actually have to have proof of address, but it can just be kind of like a handwritten note from wherever you're staying. Even your hostel would work. I was on work away, so my boss just wrote something, and that was fine. So proof of address, you have to go in with your passport, and I also brought my ID from the States as well as my working holiday visa itself, but they didn't ask for that. All they asked for was proof of address and passport. And then they take your fingerprints as well. So then this card comes in 2 to 3 weeks later. You have to go back to the office to pick it up. So I was actually in Dublin by the time mine got here, so I had to take the bus to Galway, get it, and then come back. But that was fun because I had friends out in Galway that I saw. So yeah, that is the first thing you need to do when you get here. And you can't do anything else until you get the card. So for the 3 weeks, you're kind of stuck. Okay. Then you can register for your PPS. And this I did in Dublin, so I can tell you more about the Dublin process. And I think just like the red Garda card, it is a lot easier in other counties. But in Dublin, this is it. In Dublin, you have to make an appointment online, and I would recommend actually doing this. I lied to you. You can make the appointment online before you get this card. Because when I went on to make the appointment, the only open availability for an appointment was a month and a half after I got this card to make the appointment. So had I known that, I would have done it a month and a half earlier. So right when I got this card, I could have gone for the PPS. But anyway, I didn't do that. So I made my appointment for a month and a half later and just kept going online every day and checking for new openings. And finally, only like half a week later, I got one. And then I only had to wait 1 week instead of 4.5 weeks. So that was good. So I made my appointment online, and I'm going to try and post the links to these down below, because that'll be a lot easier than you trying to figure out what I'm talking about. But so you go in, you have to show them proof of address, which is a little bit more intense than the proof of address for the registration card. If you're living in an apartment or a hostel or something, you have, for me, an apartment, I had to have a utility bill with the owner's name on it, and the owner or whoever's name on it, and that person writes a note signing it with his name saying that I am living here. So you have to be able to like trace it back to the owner, and the owner verifies that you're living there. That's one way to do it. That's the way I did it, and some of my friends do it. I think that's the easiest way to do it. If you're staying in a hostel, I don't 100% know what you can use. Actually, that's what this is. Statements from financial institutions. Insurance. No, this is different. Dang it. Yeah, I don't 100% remember. But I would recommend, if you're staying in a hostel at this point still, probably ask them. They would know what to do, but I would say like ask them for a bill, and then they would probably be able to do almost the exact same thing just with one of their bills. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. So yeah, and this card actually comes in the mail to the address that you had on file. So you don't go pick it up. It comes to you. So that's why your address is more important this time. And this takes, I want to say it took about 2 weeks in the mail to get here. It was 7 to 10 business days. Actually, for me, it was only 6 business days or 7 or whatever. It was the shortest amount it could be, but it could take up to 2 weeks. Probably more if it's a busy season. But once you get this card, then you can move on to the next one, which is PPS. Getting your actual proof of address. So you had to have proof of address for this. And then you had to have different proof of address for this. But neither of those proof of addresses can work for setting up your bank account, which is really, really annoying. And this was the hardest part for me to figure out. I tried like 5 different times. It took me over a month to get the proof of address right. So that is the main reason I'm making this video. So you guys don't go through the hell that I had to go through setting up my bank account so I can get paid. Let's see. Proof of address. Setting up your bank account depends what the thing they use for proof of address changes from bank to bank. So I can talk about AIB. I'm not sure what it stands for, but it's one of the main banks out here. I wouldn't recommend going here, but it could be a lot easier if your employer, if you have a job already and you haven't been paid, and you ask your employer, what bank do you guys use? And they use AIB, then that's the only reason I would recommend going to AIB. So one of the employees actually wrote down a list for what I can use for proof of address. Brian is new to the country and has no other proof of address. So you're going to want to, if your employer, this only works if your employer has AIB for their company. They can write a note, or type up a note, not handwritten, type a note that says, this person, your name, me, Brian, is new to the country and has no other proof of address. That line has to be in it, not verbatim, but fairly close. It has to say you're new to the country and you don't have another proof of address. Then the paper has to have an original logo of the company. It has to be signed and dated with the full name and address of the company. And this is actually using your employer as your proof of address. So that's why the logo, the sign date, and then the full name and address of the company itself, because the company is your proof of address. And then your staff number, and if you don't have a staff number, say it was stolen. Or, not stolen. I don't know what that word says. It has to have your staff number on it. So that's for AIB, using your employer's proof of address. If your employer uses AIB, I would recommend going that route. That's going to be the easiest way. So once again, you're new to the country, have no other proof of address. The paper that they're using has to have an original logo on it, has to be signed and dated, and have the full name and address of the company. And finally, it has to have your staff number in it. And then, write a small paragraph explaining your situation with those 3 details in it. If you're not using AIB, that's what this was for. This is Bank of Ireland. It wasn't written on it, and that's why I forgot. If you're not using AIB, you can use Bank of Ireland. I also wouldn't recommend going here, but if you're going to do it anyway, you can use statements from financial institutions, utility bills and connection letters, motor tax documents, insurance renewal documents, mortgage statements, property tax documents, or www.revenue.ie. None of those are going to be applicable to you, most likely, if you're coming in here and don't know anyone. If you don't have family here, I should say. None of those are going to apply to you except the revenue.ie one, and that is also the case for the bank I went with, which is Permanent TSB. Permanent PTSB or Permanent TSB, however you want to say it. I would recommend going here, actually. I got set up because all of these banks, they'll charge you on everything. AIB and Bank of Ireland, they'll charge you just for using your debit card. And then they'll charge you every month like a bunch of money, and it's just ridiculous. But at Permanent TSB, I actually got set up with a bank account that I can only have for like 5 years, and it's only if I'm making under a certain amount of money, which since I'm only staying for 8 months anyway, I'm definitely making less than that amount of money. I can get it, and there's no fees for keeping it open, and I don't have to pay per month, but I lose some of the benefits. Like if I want to pull money out in pounds, I get charged more or something weird like that, and transferring money to other countries. So stuff that I would never really encounter anyway. And that's why I was like, yeah, set it up, because other than that, I'd be losing, I don't know, probably like 50 euros by the end of this trip just for no reason but having a bank account. So go with Permanent TSB and ask for whichever bank account is the one where if you're making under a certain amount of money. That's the one I have. I would recommend it. And for proof of address for the bank account at Permanent, what they actually did is I had to sign up with revenue.ie, same thing that you could have used for, I guess, either of the other two. But I would, like I said, AIB, the only reason I would use it is if you're using your employer. If not, go to Permanent. Okay, so you can use revenue.ie. So what you actually have to do there is you have to go online, register for an account, and they mail you a temporary password because they want to make sure that your address is on file correctly. So they mail you a temporary password, and then that takes 5 days or whatever. So once you get that in the mail, you go online, you sign into your account with the temporary password, and it'll immediately give you an option to switch passwords. So then you put in whatever password you want to put in. Then you have an account. But that temporary password letter isn't your proof of address. You then have to go to Tax Amend Services and register your address there, and they'll mail you a piece of paper. This actually might be it. Revenue, no, that's the temporary password. They'll mail you a piece of paper that has to do with taxes, and it has your address on top. And that's the piece of paper you can use, you can bring in to register for your bank account with a proof of address. So that's a long process, but at least you know that's the route you're probably going to have to take, because everything else for proof of address, almost everything else for proof of address, is stuff that, like, if you're already living here and you're getting statements and you're getting bills. So had I known that this was the only route, I would have done it a lot sooner. And that's why it took me so long to figure it out. So once again, rundown, what you're going to do, you're getting your PPS in the mail, and then you're going to register on revenue. So PPS in the mail, then you're going to register immediately, day of, register. It takes no time at all. You have to use your PPS number though, so right when you get it, register for it. Revenue.ie. They're going to mail you a temporary password. You're going to make your account. Once you get the temporary password in, you're going to make your account, change your password, sign in, find how to register your address under tax amend services, or tax amends or something. It actually wasn't called exactly that, but the paper that came in was tax amend services. So you're going to register your address under there, wait for that letter to come in, then you're going to go to the bank. You actually have to make an appointment with the bank, but you can do that while you're waiting. Make it for 2 weeks from then or whatever. You're going to go to the bank and you're going to bring a passport. You're going to bring both of these cards, just in case. I can't remember if they used them or not, but always have these cards on you. And you're going to bring that piece of paper with your proof of address from Tax Amend Services on it, all to the bank, and they're going to set you up with a bank account. That's going to take 3 more days, and they're going to mail you again for some reason just to tell you that you have your account. And then they're also going to mail you a debit card if you were accepted. But if you do all that, you should be accepted. Okay, then you have your bank account, and then you can start being paid. You can give your employer your bank account number. You can, so it's a long process. That whole thing, for me especially, because I didn't know where to start, and I didn't start right away. And then I was on Inishmore, and I couldn't do it out there, so I had to come back. So the whole thing for me, I got it set up all of June, all of July. It took me like 2.5 to 3 months. I could have definitely made that a lot faster had I known what to do. So like I said, that's why I'm making this video for you guys. I hope this helps. If I think of anything I missed, I will leave a comment down below in the description. And if it's a big thing or if it's a lot of stuff, I might even just make another video about this, because I want you guys to be informed on what you need to do. I know there were some like tips and tricks I was going to recommend you did, and I don't think I mentioned all of them. So if I start thinking there's a lot of them, I might make a part 2 to this video with the tips. I could be wrong though, I could have said them all. But yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. I hope that wasn't too confusing for you guys. And I will see you guys in our next video.